Welcome to today's video. If you're new to the channel, please think about liking and subscribing. You will get all of my up-to-date builds on my current Mandalorian Mercs costume. So during my last video, I asked for some feedback and you folks delivered. Many of you came back and said you wanted to see me build this girth belt. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'll show you how I put that together. We're going to get started putting this line together. This is a diamond braided clothesline. It's about 200 feet. Got a really good deal when I bought this. I figured I could use it to make multiple belts. It has like a shoestring texture to it, so it's not the original mohair. We're going to secure that on each end with these 2-inch D-rings. These are rectangular D-rings, and we're going to secure them to those screws that have the blue painter's tape attached to each end. And then when we're done, we're going to go ahead and use this thread to weave that the ends in place. And again, if that doesn't make sense, don't worry. When we get there, it will start to you'll start to see it. And then, as most of my builds, you'll see here, I've got company out here on the balcony. Sometimes they sneak into the storeroom, and I don't know it, so I close the door on them. So that's Gizmo, our youngest kitten, and the two boy cats like being on the balcony with me when I'm working on projects. You'll see Rocky, he's our oldest, almost 13. He's not too concerned though. The D-rings attach to the 2x4, our work area, with some drywall screws that I have wrapped in painter's tape to prevent the inside of the rings from getting scratched up. And we'll go ahead and show you how we tie our first knot with this line. So you want to find the midpoint. I marked it with a pencil. And you want to make sure that you go through the inside of the ring, and then you'll just wrap each side around it. And what you want to do is you want to make this cinch knot. This is very similar to the horse saddle strap called the cinch strap. It goes underneath. Girth belt, cinch strap, they're very close to one another underneath the horse. That's what keeps the saddle in place. But we're going to go ahead and make that knot. Notice the knot goes over the top of both lines, and we want to replicate that throughout the entire process, I guess, when we're attaching this to the D-ring. So we go to the other side, do the same thing, and once we have a few in place, you can see how it starts to look. There's a very easy method for this. I'm demonstrating that now. It's called over, over, under, under, and that will get you the desired knot. So you want to go over the D-ring and then over the line. Take the end and go under the D-ring and then under the loop. So again, that's going to be how you get that knot to look the exact same all the way through. So once I take this apart, again, because you want to make sure that your long part, the line, the longest piece of the line from the inside there is very, very tight. So once you pull that taut, you get as tight as you can. Remember, you're going over the D-ring, and then you're going to go over the line that you're holding in place. And I realized after the fact that I didn't keep that tight enough on a few of the knots, and you'll see what the end result looks like. But remember, it's over, over, under, under. And then once you pull the slack out of that, you will get that desired loop that goes over the top of both lines. So we're going to do this to both sides, and then once we are done with this side, we're going to go down and show you how we get the knot, again, to be the same on both sides. So dependent on the direction that you're going to want to make sure that you bring the line up on the inside of the clothesline. And again, that'll start to make sense here. You'll notice if you're moving from the inside out, you always want this end piece to come up on the inside of the line. So again, you're going to do your over, over, and this is that second over. Notice how the line comes up from the inside, and then it goes under, and then under the loop we just created. You're going to take this line all the way to the other side as well. So you want to have one end piece on each side, so that when we start to sew them together, we can keep them in place. So I want to use these doll needles, and I went ahead and threaded them with some kite string that had some beeswax on the end, and that just makes it easier to thread the needle through the eye. So again, you'll go ahead and thread that, and you won't have to double up. I noticed I doubled my thread a few times here, and that was a mistake because I wanted to get a loop on the very end, and it made it much more difficult to put that doll's needle through the center of both of these clotheslines. So you can just do one thread, and then you'll just thread back. Once you get to the end, you'll just go ahead and put the needle back through, and that'll create that loop on the end. And again, it's much easier if you go through 2 strings at a time versus trying to go through 4, 5, or 6. And it was here also that I realized that my camera was mounted to the 2x4, and it shook a lot. So if the motion's too much, you can go ahead and fast forward a couple of minutes, or at least make sure that you understand the technique, and you can go ahead and move forward. Once we've put the thread through, again, going down, leaving some slack, coming back, and then we're going to take the needle and work back towards the other side so you can loop it through. You can run that needle through that loop, and that will secure it in place. So you're going to need 3 passes with the needle to get that line secured. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a loom, for lack of a better word. We don't have a weaving loom in place, but we're going to use that weaving technique. So I'll use a 3/16 dowel here to separate the lines. We'll get these as taut as possible, and we'll try to run that kite string through, again alternating where we start. So if we started with the first clothesline on the previous pass, we're going to start on the second clothesline on this pass, and you'll notice how it separates them and makes it much easier for the line to go through. Also, after I started, I went ahead and put a needle at both ends of the thread because it made it easier to pass through. And again, you'll pull that as tight as possible, and then you'll want to move those kite strings closer to the 3 lines that we sewed, the ones that we stitched through. And again, this is more of a decoration, but it's also a way to make the ends stay together, because you want to have this cinch belt underneath your leather belt on your costume. And again, here you'll see they're much tighter, and this is, again, it's decorative. If this were the mohair, you could actually take apart the mohair braid and run the ends. That's how you would secure the ends together. But here, because it's this particular clothesline, I'm using this kite string to replicate that. So we'll do this multiple times, and again, keeping it as tight as possible. You can do this as often as you'd like. If you wanted to stop here, you could, but I wanted to get a belt that was as close visually to Boba Fett's original belt in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that red cinch belt, girth belt that he had. So again, you just keep doing this back and forth, and hopefully you've been able to see how this works. And we're going to go ahead and fast forward here to the very end once we've made about 10 to 12 passes. Again, that 3/16 dowel is a little more difficult. I switched it up to a popsicle stick towards the end. Once we have enough passes in place and we're satisfied with that, we're going to go ahead and secure the thread. And I'll go probably, 2 to 3 lines up, and then I'll stitch through and then hide that thread in the weave that we just completed. And I noticed my camera stopped recording, so I had to take some stills. Again, you'll run that line through and pull it. I think I even left a loop so that I could run an additional line back through and keep it taut. Once we're done, we'll go ahead and lay that out. You can see there's a little bit of slack, and that's just because I did not keep the lines as tight as possible. And this next step, we're going to try to even that out. So we're going to have to sew 2 of these together, and I'll remove those screws, put them on the side panels there, we can attach the D-rings to those. And you want to make sure that your knots line up though. So notice that little cinch knot has that loop over the top. You get both of those put in place, secure them on both sides. We can begin stitching both of these belts together. I think I wound up using 11 lines on each, so this will be 22 lines together. And we're going to try to find the center point so we can stitch it, and then we'll come down probably about 6 inches or so, maybe 5 inches, and put an additional weave line on both sides. And that should be satisfactory, keeping it together. Again, trying to make it look as close to the original Boba Fett as possible. I put down some packing tape here, and that made it easier to keep the lines exactly where they needed to be for the original stitch. And remember, you only need to use one line here. I forgot, and I figured it out once I got to the very end. Oh, I have to leave a loop down here, and of course the needle's in the way. So again, you'll need 3 passes with the thread if you were trying to do exactly what I was doing here. Again, going through the midline. I made a pencil mark there. You can see that on the far right, maybe the far left, just to keep me in line. So again, if you're trying to do 4 or 5 at a time, it's much more difficult. I started doing 2, and then you'll see here, if you even do 1 at a time, it's much easier. So once we get all the way through, we're going to go ahead and remember, leave that loop. So if you use 1 line, you'll just turn right around and get as close as possible and stitch it back through. And then once you've made it down, that's 2 passes, you'll take the 3rd pass, again keeping the thread as close as possible, and then when you get to the end, you'll run that needle through the loop and then pull it tight, and that should give you your center line. And you'll notice the very top, I braided multiple times using that same weaving technique, and now I had moved on to the sides. It was at this point I had realized that the popsicle stick and tightening these lines every 4 to 5 links of clothesline, every 4 to 5 passes through the clothesline, kept it much tighter. And then after that, I started going 2 at a time, and you can notice the difference in how well these are woven together and as tight as these are compared to the top. But what we're going to do is again, finish this side. We'll hide these 2 threads. We'll go and stitch them back through. And again, we'll have to do the same thing on the other side once we snip these off. And there you have it, folks. It might have been a little more expensive than going out and buying one from Mohair, but I just wanted to show folks that if you have things laying around, you can put them to use in your Mandalorian Mercs costume build. The next time you see this Girth belt, I will be dyeing it a blue color because I want it to match my gauntlets. So thanks for joining me today. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.